Hi all, welcome to day 13, distorted mushrooms. I don't know why I just named it distorted mushroom. Maybe because the shape of these mushrooms was not very perfect and I actually did not wanted to make them very perfect, right? So the focus is on the tree above, that tree trunk that has fallen on the ground and the mushrooms. Okay, so let's quickly get started. Pretty excited to work on this one. This is a bit different from what we have done so far. So let's get started. So let's do a very rough sketch, right? So start from the left, and this would be our tree trunk. And then let's have one mushroom over here, and the other one I think will make a little bit smaller on the right side. Okay, so that's the mushroom. That's something white on the mushroom, maybe some fungus or something. And so we're gonna have this two mushrooms over there, but then not very defined. Okay, so that's what it is all about. So very rough sketch, so not trying to perfect out mushroom. I have another class on the mushroom where we actually paint a very nice mushroom. Okay, so this one is just distorted. Okay, so I think that would be it for the mushroom. So we're gonna start with the tree trunk first. So let's wet the paper, but only the tree trunk area. So I don't want any more of you to wet the whole paper, right? So we're gonna start with that tree branch that has already fallen. uh, Before that, I will just try to correct the shape of mushroom a little bit because it was actually not looking like a very nice mushroom shape. So just and then I am gonna just roll over this kneading eraser to take out all the graphite marks from that particular painting. Okay, so that's it. Because if the colors are a little lighter, it's gonna be visible on top of the watercolor, right? So yeah, I think then the sketch part is done. Now let's wet the tree trunk, the tree branch, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we'll start with, but then painting. So now you want to notice this one. This one is actually not full of autumn color. So we're gonna do some greens and reds and browns. But then how I paint a tree trunk is very different, right? So we're gonna lay some under each color because the colors that are not actually popping out, right? So we're gonna do some lots of base and then layer on top of it. Okay, so let's start by putting some raw sienna, or I think yellow ochre would just do fine. Okay, so this I'm using yellow ochre, so you can also use yellow ochre, and if you would like to go with raw sienna, I think that would also work fine. But preferably yellow ochre would be the best. Okay, so we start by painting the whole tree branch or trunk with the yellow ochre. So maybe we can drop some browns on top of it, but I think the other way would be more fine where we drop a blue. So let's see. Yeah, I think let's go ahead by painting some blue on top of this yellow ochre, and I'll tell you what we are doing. Okay, so we're gonna just blend all the colors right directly in the paper instead of doing on the palette. Okay, so I will be dropping this yellow, ultramarine blue, sorry, not yellow, ultramarine blue on top of it now, right? And then cover the tree, and then at some areas we're gonna leave the yellow ochre just popping, and once we're done putting the blues, and as you can notice, right, I have not used a very darker version of the blue over here. Very light tone of the ultramarine blue. Now let's go ahead and drop some browns on top of it. So what will happen, your ultramarine blue and your brown when mixed together will actually form a black, a darker shade of brown, or black, right? So if we want to make that tree darker, then that's what we want to go for, right? So I put more of ultramarine, and now I'm gonna just drop some Van Dyke brown on top of this one. See, you can see, right? This is a different shade. So now you could have made that burnt umber shade directly on your palette also. But here I'm mixing on the paper instead of mixing on the palette, and just gives a very natural feel to it, because then watercolor reacts in its own way, where we are not controlling what happens when the two color comes in contact with each other. Now you can see that where the blue color was lighter, the shade has gone light, and where it was darker, the shade is little lighter. Okay. As of now, I feel ki this is like too much of brown and black going on that tree. Maybe we'll have to lift something. But let's see how it goes. I will not be able to figure it right away, so we'll see. And then in bits and pieces I want to drop in green, but then because it is very dark I won't be able to drop greens or even mix it, right? So I think I'm gonna just leave it, by just lifting some colors. I'm gonna leave it for some time and then come back to this one and see what we could actually do. Okay. Yeah, so some areas, if it is not looking more if it is looking too dark, then you can also put some brick red on top of it. So this is an optional step, so I won't actually, so if you, even if you don't do now, it's gonna work out perfectly fine. So I have done that, but then later you will see me realizing, yeah, I am just lifting it. So that's why I'm not recommending anyone of you to go with that. But then we'll see. Okay. Okay, so I just lifted, and now let's see if dropping the greens on the areas which were lifted makes sense or not. So I think, yeah, it's visible to some extent. So I think for now, I think it's okay. Um, I know it's not still looking like a tree branch, but then let's see. So it has dried up, and now quickly let's do the background for the mushroom. And if your color gets very near, because we're gonna do this wet on wet, right? So if the water is going near to your tree trunk and it starts bleeding, then just don't worry about it. So let it bleed, and it would all be okay. So once it is all wet, and you want to leave the mushroom area, right? So we don't want to paint over the mushroom, so we just leave that area, and then we're going to start by putting some light green on it now, and then randomly drop your sap green, your dark green on top of this one. Okay, so just first paint the whole base with the same color, and then drop your greens, different shades of green at different areas, and that's it, I think, for the background. Okay, so let's do the background quickly. Yeah, don't forget the middle area. Okay, so now let's take another version of the greens, maybe sap green, or sap green mixed with burnt sienna, or Payne's gray, or neutral tint, or anything, or maybe olive green, right? So just take another shade of green, and let's mix. There is one more trick, right? If you want to have, and if you don't have a granulating color, and if you want a granulating effect, right, just mix your colors using ultramarine blue, because it has granulating property. In the end, it's gonna act like you have used a granulating color. Okay. Okay, so let's have some different shades of green at different area. Not trying to blend them too much, right? And also not trying to leave it lemony. So don't. The light green is more towards the lemon green, right? So don't leave like that. We still want the green background to look like a green background. Okay. Okay, so I'm just lifting some colors from the tree trunk now, because I think it just blended too much, and I just couldn't feel any green over there or anything. So, and it was not completely dry also. So, the lifting is possible, right? So just I just lifted some colors from the tree trunk because we want to make it look prominent, right? Okay, so yeah, let's see. Now let's detail out the tree. Okay, so at the corners, just put some darker burnt umber or Payne's gray on top of it to make some darker shade, because when it is drying it is just going too light. So let's drop some colors, then lift the colors from the tree trunk, and the areas which are remaining you can drop in some greens over there, right? So how do you lift? So basically you wash your brush in clean water, then pull some plain on from your paper, then again wash your brush, dab it on a paper towel or cotton towel, paper, whatever you have, then swipe it across again. So that's how the lifting would be work. So you dip your brush in water, you lift colors, you again wash your brush, dampen in the cloth or tissue paper, and then again come back and then try to lift it. Now we're gonna leave this one to dry. Until this is drying, let's do some mushrooms. Okay, so for the mushroom I'm using scarlet red. So you can directly pick scarlet lead ready from your tube or pan and start coloring the whole mushroom with this color. The spots on the mushroom, so I have not used any masking fluid here for the spots on the mushroom, so we are going to do it with the help of gouache. Okay, white gouache. So we'll be using white gouache for covering or making those spots. So as of now we'll do scarlet red for the whole mushroom, and the left side of the mushroom we're gonna put make it a little bit darker. So you can take either brown or Payne's gray to paint that area, right? So let's see how to do it, but I'll show you in a bit. So let's try to cover the mushroom in the scarlet, so both the mushrooms basically in the same color. Okay, so now just I took my neutral tint and let's go across the left border of the mushroom and paint it in some dark colors. Then it's like the light is coming from your right side and your left side is little bit darker, it's in the shadows, right? That's how it depicts. Okay, so we're gonna do exactly same thing what we have done with this one for the mushroom on the right as well. The technique for both is exactly same. So we paint the same with scarlet red and then also do the shadow for that one using Payne's gray as well. Okay. So I know the detailing on the tree was left, and I think we left this to dry before we add any greens to the tree trunk. So we're gonna come back to it right after some time once we complete this mushroom, right? And so the bottom part of the mushroom also is not very detailed. So I don't want it to make anything detailed. So it's very clumsy, distorted, ugly mushroom basically, right? So it has a different charm to it. But that's okay. I think you get it. Okay, so now take some of your. So actually, I think there is a hint of color on my brush, but it has to be a plain water. So take some plain water and do your Indian yellow at the bottom of your mushroom, and then just blend that with the plain water. Okay, so just take brush, wash your brush, and dampen it your paper towel or tissue paper, and then just go over the white area, the remaining part of the mushroom. Okay, okay, so we're gonna add some browns to the border of that mushroom branch now, the bottom part of the mushroom, right? So we're gonna add some browns on that now, and then we'll start to see if it is properly defined or not. If not, then we are just gonna add some detailing on the mushroom. Okay, so let's add some yellows. I think the bottom part is looking very clumsy. It's not very detailed out. So let's add some yellows to that mixture. So you can use cadmium yellow for this one. And if you don't have, then mix some yellow with white gouache to do the detail so that it stands out. Okay. And then let's add some white spots on the mushroom and on the bottom of the mushrooms also, because it's that kind of mushroom. Okay, very randomly, not very defined. So you just want to make some random strokes on the sides of the mushroom, and on the top of the mushroom just follow some mushroom patterns. So at the top or at the center they're gonna be very small, at the center they the spots will be big, right? So that is what we want to follow. So we're gonna, the next thing for us to do is the spots on the mushroom. And if you're not comfortable using a big brush, please use a smaller brush for creating the spots, and they can be any shape, size, and pattern. So just make a mixture of small, big, medium spots. Okay, so that is all about the mushroom. So as soon as you actually add those spots, it just starts looking like a mushroom, right? Yeah. So I think it's looking very nice now. So once the detailing on the tree trunk, and I think we'll add some grasses also on the bottom, and then we'll see how it stands out, how the whole painting just gets turned around, right? And this is what is very interesting about watercolors. If you know how to deal with watercolor, you can start playing with them, right? So I know that the tree trunk actually did not went as we expected, but then see now, right? It's just at the perfect shape. So we just add some details. So what we're doing, I'm just adding some scales on the tree trunks. If you have seen old trees, right, they have some scales coming out, right? So that is what we are trying to make. And then let's add detail, make it some darker anywhere, lighter any at some point, right? So if needed, use a darker color for creating those shape, size, pattern, scales. See, now it is looking like a tree, and I'm so happy, right? How it turned out. So we had to correct our mistakes in between, but I think we reached where we wanted to reach. Okay, now I'll be adding some greens to the tree trunk to create that moss on the trunk, because because see, it's not a live actual tree anymore. The branches already fallen on the ground where these teeny tiny mushrooms are, which are in the focus. But then the moss will also spread on the tree, right? So we'll add some moss on the tree, and then also add the grass. So I will start by adding the grass, but then also remember, when we are adding this grass, it need not be only one shade. So I think it has to be multiple shades of green, right? So do this kind of upward strokes so that we make the grass. And if your grass is going on top of the mushroom also, I think that is perfectly fine. So you should not worry about, oh, my grass is going on top of the mushroom. Oh, that's perfectly fine. It should actually go, right? So yeah, so don't try to perfect out the nature, because nature is not perfect. So, and it is vast, it's very abundant. So I think it should be the way it is. Okay. So add some big grasses if you want to. Add grasses at the random place also if you want to. So don't worry about it. If you're going over the mushroom, I think that's perfectly fine. Okay. So if you have used a lighter shade, then do a one shade darker. So just do some variations, or may even make some browns with your green. So it's just gonna turn out to olive green or some different kind of green, and I think it will look good. Okay. Okay, I think that green is not gonna work. So this green is not working. So we'll add some green light on the tree, right? So see, now when you add that green light on your tree trunk, it actually looks like a moss, right? On your tree, and then soften it out, because we don't want any hard edges. So just take clean water and go on the sides of that shape that you have put using green, and it just turns very lovely. Okay, I think the grass may be a little lighter, and if you want, I think you can go ahead with one more round of greens on top of those grass. I think that will make a difference. But if you have done your grass right, don't do anything about it. Okay. This is a completely optional steps. If you think that you want to make the grass greener, more darker, then only go for this step. Else you can skip this one. It's still looking very beautiful. Okay, so I think you guys got the method. There are different techniques that we use in this one. So tree trunk, instead of placing brown directly on the tree trunk, we did a couple of things. We placed a blue and then brown on top of it. We made it darker. Then we used a lifting technique to lift some colors and then make that tree into what it is now, right? So it's a very different technique, unusual technique that we have used. So I think you guys enjoyed this class project. I just can't wait to see your projects in the project section. So let me know how did you like this one, and thank you again for joining me in this class. Day 13. I can't believe day 13 is almost over. So let's continue with the next one. See you in my next class.